other print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Thank you, Larry. Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, May 13th, 2026. Your readers today are
Larry Beenan
and Linda Ranella. Starting with the weather report. Rain and drizzle this morning, followed by a couple of showers and a thunderstorm this afternoon. Breezy. Rain can lead to slower travel and reduced visibility, a high of 60. A couple of showers tonight, low 44. Tomorrow, a shower in spots, high of 50 and a low of 45. For Friday, times of clouds and suns, high of 62, low of 50. For Saturday, partly sunny and breezy, high of 68, low of 51. For Sunday, partly sunny, high of 68, low of 57. For Monday, pleasant with some sun, a high of 79 and a low of 64. And for Tuesday, morning rain, clouds, cooler, high of 65, low of 49. Sunrise was at 5:55 a.m. and sunset tonight is at 8:29 p.m. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Our opening story. Zach gets him back. Game 4 on a night that has it all. A goal that isn't. A lucky puck. Blocks and penalties. Aplenty. Zach Benson and UPL helped the Sabres pull even with the Habs. When the feeling was grim, team displayed will to win. Montreal. The Bell Center was roaring and the Buffalo Sabres just wouldn't stop taking penalties. Game 4 of this second-round series looked and felt a whole lot like Game 3, and then it didn't. The Sabres showed the will we've seen from them all year. They didn't wait. They didn't wilt. They got saves. They got timely goals and blocked an unbelievable number of shots. They learned from some hard lessons they endured 2 nights earlier. And now the series is tied. 2 wins apiece, with 2 of the potential 3 games remaining in KeyBank Center. And get ready, Buffalo. Tuesday's 3-2 heartstopper in Game 4 of the Stanley Cup playoff series got the Sabres even in the face of wild adversity. They should have had a 2-0 first-period lead were it not for a bogus call by the NHL Situation Room that wiped out a Jack Quinn goal by ruling Konsta Helenius had interfered with Jakob Dobias. More than a half hour after the final horn, Lindy Ruff was still fuming about this one. Had the Sabres lost this game, you would have had the same sick feeling you did after John LeCair's goal through the side of the net in 2000 in Philadelphia. Robbery. For purposes of this discussion, let's not include the goal, that whole guy in 1999. That was the Stanley Cup final, but this is still round 2. So instead of being in control, the Sabres went into the first intermission down 2-1 when Cole Caulfield scored a power play goal with less than 13 seconds left. What a downer. A couple things didn't really go our way, and emotions were a little high, admitted Tage Thompson, who was in the box for the Caulfield goal after a terrible cross-checking penalty in the offensive zone. We had the same thing happen to us in Game 3, and we kind of let the emotions get the better of us. When you talk about learning your lesson and moving forward, that's what we did. We learned our lesson in a similar situation coming into the first intermission. Did a way better job of regrouping, calmed ourselves back down, and thought we played a great game. We really tightened it up defensively. Let's not forget how many of these guys are in their first playoff season. Names like Thompson, Matthias Samuelsson, and Rasmus Dahlin. Thompson and Dahlin in particular have to figure out a way to stop with the silly penalties. Samuelsson had a good chuckle when he recounted when Bowen Byram, a 2022 Stanley Cup champion in Colorado, remember, was saying during the Boston series about a win in Game 1 made you feel like a sweep was imminent, and a loss in Game 2 made you wonder if you were going to lose in 5 games. Just the emotional flows. It's a lot of fun, Samuelsson. Obviously, I've never experienced it before, but I'm getting a pretty good taste of it this year. So I think for me, I just try to enjoy the ride, enjoy the flows of it. It was tough to enjoy some of what we saw Tuesday. The Sabres were outshot 22-10 over the final 40 minutes. And it felt like they were in big game danger territory in the second period. But Thompson's fluke goal off the stanchion in the corner and off Dobish's leg got Buffalo even. That felt like the hockey gods just giving us one back, said a smiling Samuelson. We'll take it. And let's see here. We'll take it. We can, so I was pretty fired up. Samuelson had a great game, with the first goal as well as a team-high 6 of Buffalo's astounding 27 blocks. He played 7-13 on the penalty kill, second to Connor Timmins, 7-42, and was a huge reason the lethal Montreal power play was only 1 for 7 in this game. It was a big day for Ruff, too. Lots of big roster decisions came through. Ruff has never been a fan of the Montreal media mob, and that goes back to the 90s and 2000s. Joke has always been that Ruff's multiple personalities include Playoff Lindy and Montreal Toronto Lindy. We saw both of those Tuesday after the morning skate. Ruff was short and sardonic with reporters. He shot me a look at one point as he was saying, "Watch this." I knew what he was up to. A couple of times he was only a level or two up from Belichickanian or on to Cincinnati. Asked early in this meeting about the insertion of Schenn in the lineup, his answer initially was, "How do you know he's playing?" Well, they let us into the morning skate, and we saw what we saw on the ice, unless you were pulling a total mirage on us. As it turned out, Ruff played it straight, and what we saw, Ukko Pekka-Luukkonen for Alex Lyon, Luke Schenn for Logan Stanley, Hellenius coming in for Sam Carrick and centering Jason Zucker and Jack Quinn, with Ryan McLeod moving between Jordan Greenway and Beck Malenstein. Hard to complain about any of those moves. Luukkonen made 28 saves, and many were of the difficult variety. He's a dog. So many big saves tonight we really needed. Game-winning goal scorer Zach Benson said of Luukkonen. He was the biggest reason why we walked out of this building with the win. Schenn, the easiest move to question, gave the Sabres 7 minutes and 2:40 came on the penalty kill. Hellenius was terrific, skating unimpeded all night and just failing to connect on a pair of 2-on-1 breaks with Jason Zucker. The fact Ruff had him on the ice inside the final 4 minutes spoke volumes. It's a great feeling that the coach trusts me, Hellenius said. I played those situations in the NHL, but not in the NHL. So it was great to play out some big minutes. It means a lot. Now, even in the face of this win, there are some realities we're going to have to deal with. One is the Sabres aren't going to get many calls in this place. It's a madhouse. Fans howl every time a Canadiens player gets sneezed on, and when one hits the ice, the place erupts. Human nature being what it is, referees are going to shoot their arms into the air a lot, but the embellishment going on at times from the Montreal side of things is pretty silly. The Sabres remained undaunted. They have home ice advantage again. They're 2 wins away from a trip to Carolina for the Eastern Conference Finals. Said Ruff, "It looked like our team again, from the way we started the game to the way we finished the game." Linda?
Thank you, Larry. Local activists back bill aiming to limit plastics. Lucas Santos said when he speaks to people in Buffalo about a proposed state law to reduce packaging and plastic waste over the next dozen years, the response is very positive. Everyone just agrees that it's something that needs to get passed now, said Santos, joined by fellow Buffalonians who trekked to the New York Capitol on Monday to support the bill. But in Albany, not everyone agrees. The Packaging Reduction and Recycling Infrastructure Act, sponsored by Assemblymember Deborah Glick, Democrat of Manhattan, and Senator Peter Harcum, Democrat of South Salem, remains in standing committees. It passed the Senate last year but failed to reach the Assembly floor, despite anticipation among environmentalists and supportive lawmakers that it would pass if allowed to be put up for a vote. Now, with less than a month remaining in the state's annual legislative session, the future of the bill remains uncertain. On Monday, an estimated 250 advocates for the bill rallied outside the Capitol to call on both houses to pass the bill and Governor Kathy Hochul to sign it into law. The bill would require companies with net incomes above $5 million to reduce their single-use plastic packaging by 30% over the next 12 years. The Business Council of New York State, among others, has opposed the bill, arguing it could put some products off the shelves. Glick and Harcum, who chair the environmental conservation committees in their respective houses, added amendments to make it more appealing to its opponents. It now bans 12 chemicals in plastics instead of 17. The penalty for violating the law was lowered from $100,000 per infraction to $10,000. And it removed a provision that would have created a toxic packaging task force and allowed the state's Department of Environmental Conservation to add chemicals to be banned in the future. Beyond Plastics, a Vermont-based organization led by former regional U.S. Environmental Protection Agency Administrator Judith Ennick, has estimated that the bill would save customers of private waste haulers and municipalities tens of millions of dollars in western New York alone. It's just been such a slog to get this bill passed for our public health and for all the savings that's going to happen once we get this bill passed within, specifically for the city of Buffalo, said Santos of North Buffalo, a district captain for Beyond Plastics in Buffalo. Thea Hayson, who lives on Buffalo's west side, estimated that the bill would save the city of Buffalo about $800,000 annually in decreased disposal costs and compensation from packaging companies. She said she has toured recycling facilities across the country for the past 5 years and witnessed the impact of plastics contaminating glass, paper, and cardboard, creating extra costs and contamination. So we can't recycle the material that should be very recyclable, she said. Peter Bartlett of North Buffalo and Dylan Degenhardt of Buffalo's West Side also advocated for the bill. I believe we should be taking care of our planet not just for us, but for future generations, he said. Degenhardt said he wanted to reduce the level of packaging waste on city streets and garbage. In May 2025, when the bill passed the Senate 33-25, then Senator Sean Ryan, now mayor of Buffalo, and Senator April Baskin, Democrat of Buffalo, voted for it. Senate Minority Leader Robert Ort, Republican, North Tonawanda, and Senators George Borrello, Republican of Sunset Bay, Patrick Gallivan, Republican of Elma, and Thomas O'Mara, Republican of Big Flats, whose district includes eastern Allegheny County, all voted against it. The bill has the support of others, the Buffalo Common Council and New York State Association of Counties. Ennick served as an administrator for the EPA under the Obama administration for an area that included New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and 8 Indian nations. The latest push for the bill, Ennick said, comes as Hochul and state leaders are close to passing a state budget that is expected to move back target dates to lower climate-changing impacting emissions required under the 2019 Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. State leaders are also expected to agree to relax and lessen red tape under the state's environmental review standard. It is imperative that this bill come up for a vote, allowing the state to restore some of the damage that is being considered in the state budget, Ennick said in a statement. The budget, due April 1st, remains late. State lawmakers passed a $2.9 billion bill on Monday to keep state operations funded through Thursday, their 11th extender bill since missing the budget deadline. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Evidence doesn't back ivermectin for antivirus. With a fatal antivirus outbreak setting off public health alarms, could ivermectin be a solution? As 18 people who were aboard a antivirus-stricken cruise ship prepared for their May 11th return to the United States, some on social media said the anti-parasitic drug ivermectin could be an effective treatment for the antivirus. Only it's not. We spoke with 4 doctors who told us there are no specific drugs or cures for hantavirus, which is spread primarily by rodents. But doctors beat hantavirus patients' symptoms with supportive care, including providing supplemental oxygen or administering blood pressure medication. One of the U.S.-based passengers tested positive outside the United States but isn't currently experiencing symptoms. Another person is displaying some hantavirus symptoms without a clear cause, health officials said. Most of the 18 people were taken to a quarantine unit at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. 2 people were moved to a biocontainment unit at Atlanta's Emory University. U.S. health officials plan to assess passengers for a few days. They will be monitored for 42 days total, either at home or in one of those medical facilities. 9 other people who had already disembarked from the MV Hondias or had been exposed to a confirmed hantavirus case on an international flight are also being monitored across 6 states. Question: is there a treatment for hantavirus infections? No, there are no specific treatments for hantavirus infections. There are at least 24 types of hantavirus that cause disease in humans, but most of those cannot be transmitted by humans. The Andes hantavirus linked to the cruise ship outbreak is the only strain known to spread from person to person. It belongs to a group of hantaviruses endemic to the Americas. Its early symptoms include fever, headache, muscle aches, and gastrointestinal systems. Andes hantavirus typically affect the heart and lungs through a condition called hantavirus cardiopulmonary syndrome. Symptoms progress to include cough, shortness of breath, accumulation of fluid in the lungs, and shock. Some research supports using the antiviral drug ribavirin to treat other types of hantavirus infections that can cause kidney failure, but that's not the kind found aboard the cruise ship. Ribavirin hasn't been proven effective for viruses that affect the heart and lungs, Harvard Health reported. Some treatments have been studied for different species of hantavirus, but there are no treatments with sufficient evidence to my knowledge at this time, said Dr. Emily Abdullah, a University of Michigan Medical School clinical medicine professor. That's partly because it's a rare infection. Annually, there are about 300 hantavirus cases across North and South America, which makes it difficult to conduct studies that would establish effective treatments, Abdullah said. Hantavirus first attracted attention in 1993 with an outbreak in the Four Corners region of Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah. Between then and the end of 2023, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention counted 890 cases in the United States. A common form of transmission in the U.S. occurs when someone cleans out a shed or basement where rodents have been living. Feces may become airborne if disturbed in this way, and if so, the person can inhale or swallow infected particles. One of the dangers of hantavirus is that the illness proceeds slowly and unremarkably at first, with symptoms such as fever, chills, achy muscles, and a headache. Question: is there anything doctors can do to help someone with hantavirus? Yes. We spoke with 4 physicians who said treatments focus on addressing the complications caused by the illness. Doctors can't cure the infection, but they can often support normal body functions until the immune system response controls and then resolves the viral infection, said Dr. Anna Wald, a University of Washington School of Medicine professor. During severe hantavirus infection, she said, patients might not be able to maintain normal blood pressure, or their lungs might stop delivering oxygen to the body. The only treatment that we have available is what we call supportive care, such as providing oxygen, monitoring the respiratory status, and even intubating the patient if needed, said Dr. Monica Gandhi, a University of California, San Francisco professor of medicine. If someone's blood pressure drops, which can happen when shock sets in, Abdullah said doctors might prescribe medications called vasopressors, which constrict blood vessels. The speed and quality of care people receive will affect their survival, said Dr. Peter Chin Hong, a University of California, San Francisco professor of medicine. In some cases, patients with severe illnesses might need advanced life support, such as ECMO, or extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, which involves pumping blood into a machine outside the body that removes carbon dioxide before sending the newly oxygenated blood back into the person's body. Researchers are also investigating experimental therapies, including antivirals, convalescent plasma, or monoclonal antibodies, Chin Hong said. Question: why can't ivermectin work as a hantavirus treatment, as some people claimed online? All 4 doctors told PolitiFact that they knew of no evidence showing that ivermectin would be effective against hantavirus. Ivermectin is an excellent medication for parasitic infections, but there is no clinical data that it works against viral infections, including hantavirus, Wald said. Chin Hong said some people have theorized that ivermectin could have antiviral uses because it blocks a certain protein that some viruses must bring into the nucleus to produce there. This is not relevant for hantavirus, which can reproduce in other ways, not involving the nucleus, such as a cell's cytoplasm. Ivermectin has shown some promising activity in test tubes, not clinical trials, against viruses such as SARS-CoV-2, but not hantaviruses. It hasn't been studied against hantaviruses in any setting, Chin Hong said. I would worry that promoting these messages may lead to false hope and delay access to care, he said. In hantaviruses, timeliness in receiving care is crucial.
Thank you, Larry. Today in history, Wednesday, May 13th, 1846, the United States declared war on Mexico. Texas had been admitted to the Union the previous year, and the two nations could not agree on the location of the new state's southern border. Texas and the U.S. claimed land stretching to the Rio Grande, while Mexico said the border was north of that at the Nueces River. In 1862, the USS Planter, a steamer for the Confederate Navy, was taken over by a slave, Robert Smalls, who served as the ship's helmsman. Smalls guided past Confederate forces and surrendered it to the Union. In 1864, on land formerly of General Robert E. Lee's estate, Arlington National Cemetery interred its first soldier. The cemetery became a final resting place for approximately 400,000 soldiers, veterans, and eligible family members. In 1890, a patent was issued to Nikola Tesla for his pyro-magnetoelectric generator. In 1958, the motorcade of Vice President Richard Nixon was attacked in Caracas, Venezuela, during Nixon's goodwill tour of South America. And in 1981, Muhammad Ali Agha shot Pope John Paul II in St. Peter's Square in Rome. The Pope was wounded but survived. Agha was sentenced to life in prison, then pardoned by Italy in 2000, and returned to his native Turkey, where he served another 10 years for a separate murder conviction. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. The local Buffalo News editorial. Attacking blight. It's about time city leaders took action on Buffalo's vacant properties. A big piece of land in Black Rock is still owned by a Detroit company that decided not to build a bridge there more than 12 years ago. There are no known plans for the dozens of acres. At the corner of Grant and Potomac Avenue, a vacant lot owned by out-of-town billionaire John A. Cassidy of United Refining has been sitting for more than 20 years. Neighborhood groups have attempted to buy it or used it for a community garden to no avail. The former AM&A's at 377 Main Street continues to deteriorate as a years-long ownership fight drags on between out-of-town Chinese investors. It has been vacant for 3 decades. And then there is the Buffalo Grand Hotel, vacant for 5 years, despite the city's urgent need for its 486 rooms. Canadian owner Harry Stinson has offered little more than undelivered promises regarding this structure that sits at the entrance to downtown Buffalo, and it is walking distance from City Hall and the architectural masterpieces of Church Street. As reported by the News' Jonathan D. Epstein, Mayor Sean Ryan's administration is taking steps to attack a vacant property issue that is contributing to blight throughout the city of Buffalo, especially given a need for housing that has reached crisis levels throughout the nation. The idea of property owners hanging on to empty buildings or land just because they can doesn't sit well with city officials, nor should it. As Ryan stated, the highest and best value of property in the city of Buffalo is tax-generating commercial activity. He's right. It won't be easy to activate these unused properties, which are scattered across the city throughout both commercial and residential districts. But the effort must be made. Not only are the properties not contributing by providing residential, business, or even community garden spaces, they're casting an ugly shadow across their neighborhoods. Ryan plans to start by simply making public lists of fallow properties, categorizing them by type. If they weren't aware before, neighbors will know who owns the empty lot or boarded up building that has been tisking about for years, even decades. It's also possible that these owners may have to pay higher property taxes for their unused property. Ryan is pushing for state legislation that would allow such hikes. Finally, there is the option of eminent domain, a lengthy process through which the city would take ownership. That ought to be a rare occurrence, but sometimes it's justified. In the case of the Grand Hotel Buffalo, city officials have been more than lenient in giving Stinson time to seek financing that would allow him to finish renovating and reopening it. In the meantime, as with most vacant properties, the appearance of the structure has not improved. It's been cited for 18 code violations and squatters have been reported. After a grace period in which Stinson had one last chance to secure financing, the city seems ready to proceed with declaring the hotel abandoned property under state law, a process started under Ryan's predecessor, Christopher Scanlon. City officials can then take control and try to get the property into development under a different owner. It's even possible, as this lengthy process plays out, Stinson might yet get viable financing and stave off the legal action. Stranger things have happened. What's important here is that the city is doing something about getting vacant property back into use. It must be noted that vacancy is not the only problem, especially with housing. Buffalo is behind on its proactive rental inspection program, and advocates are continuing legal action that demands implementation. PRI was designed to address issues lead-based paint, faulty plumbing, and other issues that affect the safety and health of tenants. Given its formidable agenda of property-related issues, the Ryan administration is off to a good start. It has a long way to go. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. The editorial cartoons. The first one is by John Deering of Creator Syndicate, and it shows President Trump and he is climbing the stairs to get into Air Force One. However, Air Force One this time is labeled Trump Economy, and President Trump has tripped over his extra long tie. He's tripped himself, and he has fallen on the stairs, fallen forward on the stairs going up, and he says, blankety blank, Biden. And the second cartoon is by Tom Stiglitz, also Creator Syndicate. There was a movie out a couple of years ago, a cartoon movie. It's a Disney movie. It's called Ratatouille. And it's about a young man. He wants to become a chef, and he has a friend, a little rat, who helps him. And this one is shows the young man. He now has a mask on, and he's also wearing rubber gloves, and he's holding the rat, and he's looking at the rat. He's saying, sorry, can't be too cautious. And it is labeled Ratatouille 2, the Hutton virus outbreak. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. The letters to the editor. Americans are being failed by their leaders. When are we going to say enough to the senseless killings? We see ICE agents masked with no ID kill innocent people. We need to deport criminals, but ICE operations seem cruel and unnecessary. The Venezuela boat strike killed many people. Would it not have been better to intercept the boats, finding out if they were carrying drugs, who were supplying them, and where they were going? When are our leaders of both parties going to stop inciting the masses with their rhetoric? There was a time when both parties worked together for the common good. Now, if someone has a different opinion, they are called stupid or much worse. When are we going to realize we need leaders who will work for everyone, not just their billionaire donors? We need to worry about the corruption and conflict of interest of our leaders, not just about the people getting underserved SNAP benefits. And when are we going to see all the Epstein files release? The victims need closure. This from Robert Vossler of Sardinia.
Thank you, Larry. Legislation will help reduce plastic waste. Plastic is in your lungs, your brain, and your bloodstream. This week, our elected officials have a chance to do something about it. The Packaging Reduction and Recycling Infrastructure Act that's S1464A and A1749A, is headed to the New York State Legislature for a vote. This bill requires a 30% reduction in single-use plastic packaging, mandates that most packaging meet needs, established recycling rates, prohibits the worst toxic chemicals from packaging materials, and establishes a small fee paid by manufacturers, not taxpayers, to fund the responsible recovery and reuse of packaging materials. That last point matters for our city. Beyond Plastic estimates PRRIA would save Buffalo taxpayers $800,000 annually in avoided costs and reimbursements from packaging companies. Plastic pollution isn't just a global crisis, it's our crisis. The Buffalo River recorded among the highest microplastic levels of 29 rivers sampled in recent national study. Much of it is single-use packaging, snack food wrappers, and bottle caps. And when plastics aren't washing into our waterways and drinking waters and beer, they're being burned in Niagara Falls incinerator or buried in our landfills. The problem isn't that we're failing to recycle. Most plastic packaging was never designed to be recycled, and there's no market for it because it's basically worthless. We need policies to reduce plastic production and prioritize people over profits. It's time for packaging companies to pay for their waste, not Buffalo taxpayers. State legislators, please vote yes on PRRIA, and that's from Thea Hasen of Buffalo. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. America should not imprison immigrants. The America I grew up in was never a country to intentionally hurt or torture anyone. I fought against that in World War II. Rather than build concentration warehouses to deprive humans of freedom and basic rights, I believe a better and less costly solution is to find 3 main areas most detainees came from and then fly 3 plane loads daily to those airports where they can find their way back to where they came from. Their crime is to want to live in a better country for their families and their safety. If America is a true symbol of freedom, it should not imprison people for wanting to be here. Deport them humanely to Central America where they can rebuild their lives. To build giant concentration camps is neither financially prudent nor is it reflective of our American values. And this is from Robert Baker of Lockport.
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 9:32, some opinion columns. This one is Another Voice. It's about health care, and it's written by Dennis Z. Kuo, MD, MHS, FAAP, and Megan K. Tracy, MD, FAAP, who are pediatricians in Western New York. State must invest in early intervention. New York's early intervention program is a powerful force for good in our state. As pediatricians, we know the crucial role of early intervention. The program, not just the idea, for children at risk for developmental delay or with complex medical needs. When a child isn't sitting up, walking, or talking when expected, time is of the essence. The earlier therapies begin, the better the outcome. Decades of research shows that intervening early in the life of a child with developmental delays and disabilities is far better than waiting until they enter school. A February article in the Journal of the American Medical Association Network Open demonstrates that when infants or toddlers receive speech, occupational, and physical therapy through early intervention before age 3, they are significantly more likely to meet proficiency standards in 3rd grade language, arts, and math. New York's early intervention program enrolls 65,000 to 70,000 children every year. Currently, however, there are long waiting lists for children due to a lack of qualified EI providers. Due to funding shortfalls, New York EI professionals are paid less than what they were paid in the 1990s. As a result, there are 11% fewer EP providers across the state compared with 2019, even as the number of licensed professionals has grown. The downstream impact is huge. Delays in EI services put our children at a disadvantage when entering preschool, school, and then the labor force. The demand for K-12 special education classrooms is growing in New York, and supplying the funding needed to meet students' educational needs is an ongoing challenge. Taxpayers must pay for increased special education services, and the impact in high school and the labor force beyond is significant. We encourage Governor Kathy Hochul and members of the state legislature to make the investments needed, including an 8% increase in rates paid to the professionals working in the program. Every child in New York who needs early intervention services should receive them. We can't wait until next year, and neither can with children who will soon be our preschoolers and elementary students. It's time to invest more in New York's early intervention program. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. The following is my view, and it is written by Joe Croys, and he is trying to understand the lived realities of others. A moment of focus builds up over time. I was born in 1959. I grew up, went to school, built a career, raised a family, and never once as a young man had a close black friend. It's not a confession, it's simply the truth. It was the world I lived in, and at the time I didn't question it. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated when I was 9 years old. I was living in a white Catholic neighborhood, and I have no meaningful memory of the moment as it happened. Looking back, that realization has stayed with me, that something so significant in our country's history could occur, and I could move through it without truly understanding it at all. Years later, I was driving home from a meeting with a close friend and business colleague of mine who was black. We were stopped at a light when I asked him a simple question. I'm white and you're black. What's it like? He didn't hesitate. If my kids are in this car, he said, I'm looking both ways at the light, and you're not. When I leave my house every day, I'm looking both ways, and you're not. That stayed with me. I've grown up hearing about civil rights in broad strokes, but it wasn't part of my daily experience. Even something as recent and visible as the murder of George Floyd, which the entire country watched and unfold in real time, forced many of us, including me, to pause and reflect in ways we had before. Recently, I attended an event in Buffalo called Building Black Wealth Day, where my friend Don Jones was the keynote speaker. Don spoke for 40 minutes about a recent pilgrimage to Ghana, along with his involvement with the Felician Nuns. He described visiting Cape Coast Castle, one of the major forts where enslaved Africans were held before being shipped across the Atlantic. Don has lived a life that gives him perspective. Over time, he has built a life grounded in resilience and purpose. He said the trip to Africa helped him find his soul. He spoke about heritage, loss, and strength, and about the people who were taken not as victims alone, but as capable, resilient individuals whose lives and futures were cut short. Living in Buffalo, we don't have to look far to see this history still echoing. The massacre at the Jefferson Avenue Tops on the east side is a painful reminder that these issues are not confined to the past or to somewhere else. They are here. At the same time, I've been reading Black Like Me, and it's already opening my eyes in ways that are hard to ignore. It's one thing to read history, it's another to try, even imperfectly, to step into someone else's experience. What I've come to understand at this stage in my life is that awareness doesn't always come early. Sometimes it comes through a conversation at a stoplight. Sometimes it comes through a friendship. Sometimes it comes from sitting in a room and really listening to someone who has lived a different reality than you have. For me, it's been all of the above. I've always believed that if you stay open, stay curious, and still willing to listen, you learn things no book or headline can fully teach you. But every now and then, a moment comes along that reframes everything. For me, it wasn't that stoplight. Don's speech and the realization that some people carry struggles through everyday life that others never had to see.
Thank you, Larry. Some business and financial news. Rec Room owners chosen to operate Rapids Theater. The new operators of the Rapids Theater in Niagara Falls hope to get the historic concert venue reopened by the end of the year after spending $1.5 million on renovations and repairs to the vacant building that has been closed for 2 years. Concert promoter Chris Ring said he and restaurateur Dale Segal hope to have a soft reopening in November, with 1 or 2 fall concerts, including a national level or big Canadian performer for the grand opening, and will then work out the kinks over the winter. Then when the spring concerts hit, we'll be able to hit the ground running, Ring added. Plans call for 40 to 50 national touring shows per year, with 15 to 20 showcases of local and regional bands, plus weddings, special events, fundraisers, food trucks, festivals, block parties, Bills watch parties, and possibly an outdoor music series to take advantage of all the tourists coming there, Ring said. He said they hope to take advantage of Main Street and a city-owned parking lot for some outdoor events. The venue has a healthy reputation and history of large acts playing there, he said. We'll follow the same formula of acts that have performed there. Ring and Seagal, co-owners of the Rec Room Buffalo entertainment venue on Chippewa Street in Buffalo, were selected this week by a committee of city, county, and state officials for their new gig as the operators and eventual owners of the century-old Rapids in downtown Niagara Falls. First, though, they have their work cut out for them. The 1,750-seat theater has been dark since 2024 and suffered damage and leaks to the roof, allowing water into the building, so the flooring has buckled. Pipes in the bathrooms also broke. The new operators must now seek funding and incentives from state and local sources to pay for repairs. They've agreed to pay $10,000 to buy the building and pledged to spend $1.5 million on renovations, including a roof repair or tear-off, the addition of a commercial kitchen, new flooring, and lights. They also plan to remove a large center bar on the first floor and relocate bars to the left and right walls. And they want to redo the artists' green rooms to make them more hospitable to industry standards for 2026, Ring said. Ring and Seagal opened Rec Room in 2018 at 79 West Chippewa, where they've hosted concerts, private parties, corporate events, weddings, and other activities. They've also launched the Saturday Supper Club and a Sunday brunch with live entertainment. Ring also owns After Dark Entertainment, one of the largest independent concert promoters in upstate New York, handling more than 250 live events each year in Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, Albany, and the Finger Lakes. He said he and Seagal were attracted to the Rapids by its reputation and capacity, with seating for 1,200 to 1,800 people. And the government grants announced late this year, including up to $1 million for the Rapids itself, along with $30 million to $40 million being spent to revitalize Main Street, makes the project more feasible. I've done shows here since it was the Dome, so I'm very familiar with it, Ring said. We don't mind being the first on the street. The venue has been the only one on the street for the last 15 years, but seeing the money and the people are excited to come here makes it a very exciting situation. It's an opportunity to create critical mass that could be just the spark that Main Street needs to get things going. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Bear Ridge Solar seeks $19.6 million in tax breaks. After nearly 8 years of unsuccessfully fighting to prevent a utility-scale solar farm across hundreds of acres of farmland in Niagara County, municipal leaders in Cambria and Pendleton have accepted the inevitability of the $221 million project. But that's only under protest, and they want to ensure their towns and residents will at least benefit from significant host community and tax payments to the tune of $11.3 million, even as the developers receives $19.6 million in tax breaks. Cypress Creek Energy plans to construct the 100 megawatt Bear Ridge Solar that would span about half of the 1,058 acre site between the two towns. Centered at 5832 Comstock Road in Cambria, the project would occupy 516 acres across 11 non-contiguous parcels, which could be leased from 10 different owners, including the family of former Cambria Town Councilman Joseph O'Hall. It would produce enough energy to power 25,000 homes. There are no buildings on the leased area of land, which is assessed at $5.8 million. But the project would include construction of a 3,200 square foot operations and maintenance building. The Durham, North Carolina-based energy company first proposed the project in 2018, but it's been met with opposition for years from residents and political leaders, including state lawmakers from the area. They cited the loss of farmland, but also safety, environmental, and aesthetic concerns, and town officials dismissed the company's offer in 2019 to pay $10.3 million to the town's, county, and Star Point Central School District. When the company applied for state approval under a 2020 law for major energy projects that effectively overrides home rule and local zoning codes, local leaders and residents complained about the lack of local participation. But the state office approved the project nonetheless. Now the company is asking the Niagara County Industrial Development Agency for a scheduled tax agreement that would fix its tax payments over 20 years and provide long-term certainty for the company as well as the towns, county, and school district. And while town supervisors Matthew Foe of Cambria and Joel Martin of Pendleton say they still oppose the project, they concluded that if they can't win, they can at least negotiate the best deal possible. The host towns continue to be frustrated by the state's violation of home rule principles permitting the project over the objection of local communities. The supervisors wrote in a joint April 9th letter to the NCIDA. Nevertheless, the host towns, being impacted most by the project, need to make decisions that are in the best interest of their local residents in light of the fact that the project is very likely to proceed. The NCIDA will conduct an initial review of the project on Wednesday. Under the proposal, the company would save $2.09 million in property taxes, as well as $16.13 million in sales taxes and $1.41 million in mortgage recording taxes. Instead, it would make the total host community payments of $4.5 million, or $2,000 per megawatt, and $6.78 million in alternative tax payments, or $3,000 per megawatt. However, the town supervisors have said those payments, some through a payment in lieu of taxes agreement, would not be enough. The host towns bear the brunt of visual impacts, loss of farmland, noise, demand on emergency services, construction, traffic, need to review and issue building permits and certificates of occupancy, and the list goes on. They wrote, conversely, under state law, the primary beneficiary of the higher pilot is the school district, which has no negative impacts as the project will not create long-term jobs and thus will not increase school enrollment. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. As part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Bloom, FSSJ Senior, Sister, Emily Therese. Geary, Margaret A. Duane. Hoder, Sharon A. née Mapes. Knopf, Gregory. Milano, Phyllis. Osijah, Dolores R. Schoolcraft, William C. Sr. Weber, Paul C. Westphal, Barbara Ann Negrubka, and Mark Smythe. The most recent death on Mount Wilson claimed the life of a man identified as New Zealand-born, LA-based composer Mark Smythe. Following the tragedy, his colleagues and family poured out their hearts as they remembered a man they called funny, smart, and a true supporter of his peers. He died Saturday at 53 after suffering a cardiac emergency on a hiking trail. If you need further information on any of these names, please give us a call, 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Royal Stars. Happy birthday for Wednesday, May 13th, 2026. You are charming, sensitive, and intuitive. You are intellectually curious and have a gifted ability to harmonize with others. This is a year of new beginnings, adventures, and major changes. Aries, 4 stars. Because you're revved up for action today, you can expect great results. Tonight, you're in charge. Taurus, you're in the zone today because, and they've got 4 stars here for Taurus, you're in the zone today because the Sun and Mercury are in your sign, enhancing your energy and your communication style. Tonight, enjoy privacy. Gemini, 4 stars. You might attract a powerful friend to you today, or you might get advice from someone powerful who is involved with the law, medicine, or higher education. Tonight, seek out a friend. Cancer, 4 stars. You're high vis today. Everyone notices you more than usual, including some who will know personal details about your private life. Tonight, show respect. Leo, 4 stars. You'll be convincing when talking to parents, bosses, teachers, or authority figures today because you know what you're talking about. Tonight, explore and learn. Virgo, 4 stars. Today, you're entertaining big plans for future travel, higher education, publishing, the media, medicine, or the law, and it's exciting. Tonight, check your finances. Libra, 4 stars. You might attract someone who is very powerful to you today. You'll likely have an intense exchange with a spouse, partner, close friend, or a new encounter. Tonight, genuinely listen. Scorpio, 3 stars. You want answers. What's new? Your intense curiosity might relate to your work or your health. Tonight, catch up work. Sagittarius, 4 stars. Work-related travel is likely for many of you. You also might learn something you will be pleased at work. Tonight, socialize. Capricorn, 3 stars. Family secrets might be revealed today. Many of the dealings with increased activity and chaos on the home front for some reason. Tonight, relax at home. Aquarius, 4 stars. In discussions with others today, you might probe somewhat and ask deeper questions. Tonight, discussions. Pisces, 3 stars. Make sure you know what's happening with your money and your bank accounts today. Stay informed. Tonight, maintain your belongings. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. Hints from Heloise. There we go. Keep tabs on friends. Dear Heloise, I wanted to add one important aspect to the hint about older people getting cats. I knew someone who died, and when her friend went to visit, as she did fairly often, she realized that this person's cats had died as well. After hearing this story, my friend and I made an agreement to text each other each day to simply say, "Still here." If we don't hear from each other and I can't be reached by each other by phone, we have the numbers to reach neighbors who have keys and can check on the other person. We both feel better knowing that our pets will be safe if something happens to us. And that's from Meg. Meg, you bring up an important point. Too many times somebody dies, but there's no way for their pets to get food or water. My neighbor once told me that she and 3 other women are on a tag team calling system. Once a week they call each other, and if there isn't an answer after 3 tries, they go to the person's home to check on them and make certain that the pets have food and water. And that was from Heloise. With progress, we lose and we gain. Dear Heloise, I subscribe to the print and digital versions of the San Antonio Express News. While I sincerely like being able to access the digital edition when I travel, I see 2 main drawbacks to it. First, I do all of the daily puzzles, and printing them out is a hassle, and frankly quite difficult to do when I'm on the road. I do recognize that I can't access my home print edition from the road at all, but buying a local paper at a corner store is nearly impossible anymore. I'd be very happy if the paper made their puzzles interactive so that I wouldn't have to print them. The second drawback for me is a loss of context and serendipity while browsing. This seems small, but it's important to me. The spatial and tactile aspects of reading a full-size sheet of newsprint are missing from the digital experience. The digital edition can also be clumsy to navigate. I don't think there's a fix for this problem. But with progress, we always lose a few things as we gain others. And that was from Martha. Home protection. Dear Heloise, the main reason that I switched from a hard copy newspaper to a digital copy hasn't been mentioned in your column. We frequently travel and don't want newspapers to be left on the driveway and alert thefts that we are away. There's no need to call the newspaper company to stop delivering the paper or get a neighbor to pick up the paper. This has been a huge help. We enjoy your column, and that's from Lindy. And begone, aphids. Dear Heloise, I hate aphids. I really detest these pesky little buggers. With warm weather come the miserable aphids. How do I get rid of them? From Shelley. Shelley, aphids and whiteflies seem to be attracted to their favorite color, which is a very bright yellow, so try this method. Either paint a board a shocking yellow or use a bright yellow lid from a jar and coat one side with petroleum jelly, motor oil, or even honey. The insect lands on the yellow board or lid and then it can be trapped there. When it seems to be drying out, scrape off the gooey, sticky goo and recoat it to continue trapping bugs. You can also plant garlic cloves about 4 to 6 inches apart. Aphids don't like this scent, so they'll usually stay away from the plant. From Heloise. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. From the Digest, South Carolina Senate rejects redistricting plan. A bid to redraw South Carolina's congressional map and eliminate the state's sole Democratic U.S. House district failed in the state Senate on Tuesday when a handful of Republicans broke with President Donald Trump and voted against the effort. The outcome likely means the U.S. Representative Jim Clyburn, a black Democrat with broad influence within the party, will retain his seat in November's midterm elections. Separately, on Tuesday, the Missouri Supreme Court upheld a Republican-backed map that eliminated one of the state's 2 Democratic seats. The mixed developments underscore how the national redistricting fight shows no signs of flagging after the U.S. court decision last month gave states more leeway to target majority black and majority Latino districts. And lawmakers grill Patel about drinking habits. Democratic lawmakers on Tuesday pressed FBI Director Kash Patel over a media report that episodes of excessive drinking interfered with his ability to lead the premier U.S. law enforcement agency, drawing an angry response from Patel. At a hearing before a Senate budget panel, Patel defended his leadership of the FBI against Democratic accusations that his conduct, including reported drinking, had undermined national security and demonstrated poor judgment. It was Patel's first appearance before Congress since his beer drinking celebration at the Milan Winter Olympics. And briefly, Florida intends to shut down the controversial federal migrant detention center known as Alligator Alcatraz, the New York Times reported Tuesday, citing a federal official with 3 people familiar with the facility's operations. And the Golden Dome. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimated Tuesday that President Donald Trump's Golden Dome missile defense shield could cost about $1.2 trillion to develop, deploy, and operate over 20 years, a figure that dwarfs the $1.85 billion price tag offered by the program's Pentagon director. And Ukraine. Russian forces launched attacks Tuesday in Ukraine's Dnipropetrovsk region, killing at least 6 people, regional officials said, after a U.S.-mediated ceasefire expired. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, meanwhile, said his country's forces struck gas facilities in Russia's central Orenburg region.
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, May 13th on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after the short break. Your readers today are
Larry Beenan
and Linda Ranella.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are Larry Beenan and Linda Ranella. Some local and regional news. 4 historic churches will be open for public tours. 4 historic churches, including 2 in Buffalo, 1 in Niagara Falls, and 1 in the village of Medina, will open their doors this weekend for public tours of their sanctuaries as part of the New York Landmarks Conservancy's annual Sacred Sites Open House Weekend. The participating churches are Blessed Trinity Catholic Church, a National Register of Historic Places landmark at 317 Leroy Avenue, which features extensive terracotta, medieval iconography, and a display of more than 2,000 Christian symbols crafted by local tradesmen and artisans. Corpus Christi Catholic Church, 199 Clark Street, a Romanesque revival church built in 1909 and also listed on the National Register. St. John's Episcopal Church, 200 East Center Street, Medina, which dates to 1838 and is the oldest congregation in Orleans County. Niagara Heritage of Hope and Service, home of historic Holy Trinity, 1419 Falls Street, Niagara Falls, which earned a spot on the National Register of Historic Places in 2010. On Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., Blessed Trinity will offer guided and self-guided tours with St. John's, and St. John's will offer guided tours. Corpus Christi will be open for guided and self-guided tours from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Saturday and from noon to 3 p.m. Sunday. Niagara Heritage of Hope and Service will offer guided and self-guided tours from noon to 3 p.m. on Sunday. Folks, if you need any of that information repeated, call us here at the station 716-821-5555. And friendship revived as anthem singing goes viral worldwide. At 81 years old, retired telecommunications worker Gordon Foy has never been to Buffalo. But one night, all the way from Burnaby, British Columbia, Buffalo reached him anyway. Foy had been growing weary of what he described as a steady stream of anti-Canadian rhetoric dominating headlines and television coverage in Canada from the United States. The political tensions spilling across the border had begun souring his view of Americans in general. It was so bad he found American tourists visiting Vancouver difficult to tolerate. And then he saw the story about Buffalo hockey fans spontaneously singing "Oh Canada" when a microphone malfunction interrupted the anthem before a Buffalo Sabres Stanley Cup's playoff game. "It just gave me a warm, fuzzy feeling," Foy said. "We're not alone." The moment moved him enough to write a letter to the Buffalo News thanking Buffalonians for what he saw as a genuine show of kindness toward Canadians. He expected little reaction. Instead, the letter exploded online, drawing tens of thousands of readers and hundreds of shares. "I'm surprised," he said, laughing softly. "All we hear is negativity. So to hear something positive and then see people respond positively to the letter itself is very gratifying." The letter had dozens of comments on BuffaloNews.com.
Okay, here
Oh.
we are. 4 historic churches.
No, wait, Larry. Okay, I'll finish off the friendship. I already did the churches.
Okay. Blue Way Ames.
Um,
Blue Way aims to bring people back to the river.
wait, Larry, please.
We got screwed up here.
Yeah, we did. Folks, this happens on occasion. Let's see. Buffalo did itself proud that night, both respecting and standing up and singing out for our neighbors, wrote user Evil Rez. Others insisted it is politicians, not most citizens, who have a problem with Canada. "To me, Canada and their citizens are all my friends and neighbors," wrote user Ciro DiMarzio. "In these difficult, trying times, let's all give each other grace." Still another went further. "Political junk is just that. We never had an issue with the people. Don't let that balcony slant our views of each other," wrote user Rooster2. "We have nothing but good feelings for our northern brothers and sisters." The viral moment happened late last month before face-off between the Buffalo Sabres and the Boston Bruins. Technical difficulties cost singer Cammy Clunes microphone to cut out while she was singing the Canadian national anthem. Fans in the audience took over, easily belting out the lyrics to the song, which is played before every Buffalo Sabres game, whether there is a Canadian team playing or not. Foy said the anthem moment genuinely changed his outlook. He and his wife had discussed canceling an upcoming Alaska cruise as a personal protest against the political climate and a way to support his home country. But after seeing Buffalo fans sing, the couple decided to keep the trip. The viral moment was a big factor in their decision, Foy said. It changed my attitude toward American tourists, he said. There are a lot of good people there. Although Foy has never visited Buffalo, the city now occupies a warm place in his imagination. Proof, he said, that ordinary people can still build bridges when politics fail to. If he could say anything directly to the fans who sang that night, Foy's message would be simple. A loud thank you, he said. Now
Thank you, Linda. Buffalo Comptroller agrees to borrow $25 million for projects. While City Comptroller Barbara Miller Williams continues her legal fight to cap the city's borrowing, she has agreed to go to the bond market to borrow about $25 million so the city can pay some of the capital improvement projects it authorized last year for 2026. On Tuesday, Buffalo Common Council unanimously approved a list of projects that would be funded by the borrowing. They include $8.2 million for various road work projects, $3.4 million for vehicles and heavy equipment for the streets and sanitation departments, $2.6 million for repairs and improvements at several city parks and pools, $1 million for roof replacement at the Casanova Park ice rink, $1.4 million for roof replacement of Shays Performing Arts Center. Last year, the city approved $95 million in borrowing for capital projects, which include road work, building repair, and vehicle and heavy equipment costs, but Miller Williams refused to borrow the money, claiming that as comptroller it was her duty to prevent the city from borrowing more than she believes it can afford. Her office determined the city needed to cap its capital project borrowing at $28 million. After announcing her refusal to borrow more than she believed was responsible, Miller Williams was sued by Fillmore District Council member Mitchell Nowakowski and then Mayor Christopher Scanlon, who argued that Miller Williams does not have the authority to override the wishes of the mayor and city lawmakers. Miller Williams lost her case in state Supreme Court and recently lost in the appellate division, which unanimously ruled against her. Last week, Miller Williams said she would appeal to the state's highest court, the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals may not agree to hear her case, since the appellate division's decision was unanimous. With other projects included in the capital plan delayed, the city continues to waste time and money as construction costs continue to balloon, Nowakowski said Tuesday. He added it will ultimately be more expensive having to borrow money in phases instead of all at once. Where you see the biggest benefits of disposing of a capital budget is when everything that has been deliberated on has been bonded out all in one shot, Nowakowski said. I'm happy that these are going out, but in the end, the comptroller is still operating outside of her authority and cherry-picking what she has been passed by the Common Council, where that responsibility is solely the prerogative of the Common Council. Scanlon, at the time of the 2025 capital budget's passage, celebrated the $95 million borrowing plan as an important investment in the city's future, an investment that remains on hold. After Tuesday's council meeting, Scanlon, who in January returned to his seat on the Common Council, said that while it will be good to get some projects started, the legal fight has delayed crucial investments that, given the city's current fiscal situation, would not happen without borrowing. We have a tremendous amount of responsibility on the capital side, whether it's our buildings, our fleets, and our different departments, whatever it might be, Scanlon said. We are in a tough financial situation currently, so one of the avenues we do have at our disposal is the capital budget process. The struggle between Scanlon, Nowakowski, and Miller Williams over the borrowing plan began last summer, with Scanlon joined by officials from across the city whose organizations said they would have benefited from projects funded by the 2025 capital budget, calling on the comptroller to issue those bonds. Miller Williams, citing her responsibility to the taxpayers to make sure the city would borrow responsibly, refused to go to the bond market until Scanlon provided a list of projects that came under her cap. The comptroller has said she continues to hear from constituents urging her to continue the fight to stop future generations from being burdened by debt payments. But Scanlon, Nowakowski, and Mayor Sean Ryan have all argued that the city's lack of cash and significant capital needs make the borrowing the best option to address the projects necessary to begin to fix the many dilapidated buildings and poor infrastructure conditions on city-owned property. Deputy Mayor Benjamin Swankamp said that while the mayor's office is still working out some kinks and preparing to borrow for more of the projects set to start this year, it will be able to work with the comptroller's office to get many significant projects and purchases into the package past Tuesday, including all parks projects, several community center projects, and many crucial vehicle and equipment purchases. Our focus is on infrastructure and public financing. And let's see now, with the next article here, since we got screwed up, we've got Blueway Ames. Blueway aims to bring people back to the river. After decades of restoration, several public access sites await. The Buffalo River was once described as one of the most cadaverous waterways in the United States and declared dead by the Buffalo Courier Express in 1967. Decades of industrial pollution had poisoned the river that snakes through the southern region of the city. The river was so contaminated it caught fire 4 separate times, and its fish sprouted unusual tumors. But the river has entered a new era. After decades of restoration work, the Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper now wants people to do something many people wouldn't even consider: go out and enjoy it. Through a $10 million state grant awarded in 2017, the Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper has so far built 7 public access sites along the Buffalo River. The sites are part of what the organization has dubbed the Buffalo Blueway, an initiative to bring people back to the river. I grew up on the east side within a mile of the Buffalo River, and we never went to the Buffalo River. It was dirty and gross, said Catherine Winkler of Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper, Senior Program Manager of Waterway Revitalization. And now, as an adult, to have this opportunity to create these new spaces in a newly restored river is absolutely incredible. At least $72 million has been spent dredging polluted sediments from the river bottom and restoring its shoreline to natural habitats. The work was started after the creation of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency in 1970, which led the Buffalo River being declared an area of concern in 1987 as part of the United States-Canada Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement. Such designation spurred investment in the cleanup of the troubled waters. The sediments, dredged every other year by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to ensure it remains navigable, were long considered toxic and trucked to specific contained waste disposal facilities. As of 2021, tests show the sediment no longer holds the poisonous levels of PCBs, polyacrylic aromatic hydrocarbons, and heavy metals that once did. Now the dredged material is shipped to a nearby ship in Buffalo's Outer Harbor for a wetland restoration project by the Army Corps. Now that the restoration work is largely done, the Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper wants residents to take pride in the river. That's the goal with the Buffalo Blueway Initiative, said Gene Biter, Senior Program Manager of Ecological Programs at the organization. It was really important to us to provide public water access that is accessible for everybody and really create these spaces to bring people to the water's edge, Biter said. That people want to feel connected to the water, so we tried to create spaces where that's possible. The Harlem Road Fishing Access Point and Launch, which was officially reopened in April under the Waterkeeper's construction work, is the 7th Buffalo Blueway site to be built. Other sites include the newly rebuilt Wilkinson Point, Buffalo River Works, Ohio Street Boat Launch, Mutual Riverfront Park on Hammer Street, Red Jacket Riverfront Natural Habitat Park, and the Thomas Higgins Natural Habitat Park, or Bailey Peninsula. The Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper also aims to break ground to be substantially done with a Blue Wave project at the Seneca Bluffs Natural Habitat Park by the end of this year, using the original $10 million state grant, Biter said. Once Ralph C. Williams Jr. Centennial Park in Buffalo is completed, there will be 9 total Buffalo Blue Way sites, Biter said. Each Blue Way site has 4 main components: wheelchair accessible shoreline, kayak boat launches, fishing access, and parking. These 4 components ensure everyone can access the water's edge safely while enjoying various recreational activities along a restored Buffalo River, Waterkeeper officials said. Some Blue Way sites, such as the Harlem Road access point, required extensive shoreline restoration work to ensure it would survive. The Buffalo River is powerful, can experience large flooding events as well as an extreme siege events that push Lake Erie's water several miles upstream. At the Harlem Road site, which was once a muddy, unstable hillside that required some scrambling to get up and down, is now a gentle slope with a gravel pathway down to a paved kayak launch. A paved pathway and stairs lead to a large platform with low railings for viewing and fishing access to the river. The shoreline has been terraced to prevent erosion. As the Blue Way Initiative work continues, Erie County Executive Mark Poloncarz said the investment is worth it. Having the Blue Way sites along the Buffalo River gives people the opportunity to get out and enjoy something they really haven't had an opportunity to do during their lifetime. It's been a wise investment between the cleanup dollars as well as the Blue Way dollars, and they're not done yet. I think it's important that they continue to make these investments so that we can access our waterfront. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 10:17. On to sports. I got 3 sports shorts here. First one, Bison's Shrek is honored. Minor League Baseball tabbed Buffalo Bison's outfielder R.J. Shrek as the International League Player of the Week for May 4th to 10th. Shrek recorded at least 1 hit in all 6 games against the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs last week, amassing a .6 batting average by going 15 for 25 at the plate. He capped his most productive week at AAA with a 3 for 5 effort on Sunday. And the verdict is in for Charlie McAvoy. The NHL's Department of Player Safety announced Tuesday that McAvoy, the Boston Bruins defenseman, will be suspended 6 games for slashing Buffalo Sabres left wing Zach Benson in Game 6 of their first-round Stanley Cup playoffs series on May 1st at TD Garden in Boston. McAvoy will sit out the first 6 games of the 26-27 season. And the PWHL postpones playoff game due to illness. The Professional Women's Hockey League postponed Monday's Walter Cup semifinal between Minnesota Frost and Montreal Victory due to an illness affecting player safety, adding that medical assessments found symptoms were not consistent with hantavirus. The winner-take-all Game 5 had been scheduled for Monday night in Laval, Quebec. The league said the decision was made after consulting medical personnel and that a rescheduled date would be announced once it is deemed safe to resume play. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Back to hockey. On 21st birthday, Benson helped Sabres stay in fight. Montreal. Now the Buffalo Sabres are playing the Montreal Canadiens in a best-of-3 series. With a 3-2 win against the Canadiens in Game 4 of their second-round Stanley Cup playoff series, the Sabres have forced themselves in Montreal to win 2 of the next 3 games, and the winner of those 2 games will advance to the Eastern Conference Finals. On Tuesday night, inside an ear-splitting Bell Center, the Sabres squashed any hopes the Canadiens had of going up 3-1 in the series. They did it with goalie Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen making his first start since Game 2 of the first round against Boston. They did it with rookie center Konsta Hlenius on the third line and with the veteran defenseman Luke Schenn playing in his first game in nearly a month. And they did it on Zach Benson's 21st birthday, and Benson marked the date accordingly. His power play goal less than 5 minutes into the third period proved to be the game winner, and let's see here. And he became only the second Sabres player to score a goal in the playoffs on his birthday, joining Peter McNabb in 1975. Games 3 and 4 could prove providential for the Sabres. The franchise has lost Game 3, but has come back to win a series 6 times in its history. The most recent triumph having come in 2007 when the Sabres lost Game 3 of an Eastern Conference semifinal against the New York Rangers and won the series 4-2 with victories in Game 5 and Game 6. Josh Doan registered his 8th point in the last 7 games when he assisted on Matthias Samuelsson's first period goal. Doan became the first Sabres skater since Tim Connolly to have an assist in at least 5 games. Connolly registered 6 assists in 5 games from April 30th to May 10th in 2026. Doan joins Daniel Briere, Dale Hawerchuk, Pat LaFontaine, Gilbert Perreault, and Alexei Zhitnik as Sabres who have recorded an assist streak of 5 or more games in the playoffs at least one time. How it happened. A little more than a minute after Montreal goalie Jakob Dobish stopped Samuelsson's one-timer from the left circle, Josh Norris found Samuelsson on a pass from the left circle, and Samuelsson beat Dobish to give the Sabres a 1-0 lead at 6:32 of the first period. The Sabres appeared to take a 2-0 lead less than 2 minutes later on a hotly contested and thoroughly reviewed goal by Jack Quinn, which would have been his first of the playoffs. Officials initially determined after video review that while the puck was in Dobish's glove, it was already across the line when he made the save. Montreal then challenged the call for goaltender interference, and officials determined that Hellenius made contact with Dobish on the play, overturning Quinn's goal. Seconds after Montreal defenseman Mike Matheson hit the post on a shot from the top of the right circle, Alex Newhook tied the game at 1-1 at 2:08 on a pass from behind the net from Jake Evans, who played his own rebound off a shot that went high off Luukkonen and passed to Newhook for his 5th goal of the series. Then, with Tage Thompson penalized for cross-checking in the final minute, Cole Caulfield gave the Canadiens a 2-1 lead on a power play goal with 12.2 seconds left before the first intermission. With Alexander Carrier penalized on a double minor for high sticking, the Sabres tied the game at 7:00 of the second on one of the more bizarre goals of the postseason. Thompson shot the puck into the Canadiens' defensive zone toward the corner from the neutral zone, and the puck caromed off the corner glass straight toward the net and past Dobish. It was the type of lucky bounce the Sabres desperately needed. The Sabres opened the third period by killing off a 4-minute double minor penalty against Bowen Byram for high sticking. Then at 4:41, with Evans penalized for holding, Benson picked up a pass from Doan in front of the Dobish and went to his backhand to flick the puck under the crossbar to make it 3-2. Luukkonen did his part, stopping 28 of 30 shots, and his teammates did theirs as well, blocking 27 shots on the night. What's next? The Sabres host the Canadiens in Game 5 of the series at 7 p.m. Thursday at KeyBank Center. Game 6 is scheduled for 8 p.m. Saturday at Bell Center in Montreal.
Thank you, Larry. High ticket prices for home opener shock Bills fans. If you're hoping to attend the first home game at the Buffalo Bills' new stadium and don't already have tickets, get ready to pay a lot, maybe the most you've ever spent for a Bills game. Now that the NFL announced the Bills will be opening their over $2 billion stadium in a Thursday night football game on September 17th against the Detroit Lions, the first secondary market prices for seats has come out, and they are expensive to say the least. The least expensive ticket was priced at more than $700 for an upper level end zone seat on Ticketmaster as of Monday afternoon. That's 2 to 3 times the cost for the cheapest seat for some home playoff games in Orchard Park. But prices for the home opener have come down a bit. The cheapest tickets were originally priced closer to $1,000 for once the NFL announced the date for the Bills' home opener Monday evening. Better seats are even pricier. A ticket for the home opener at the Founders Club is priced as high as more than $14,700, and in the Field Club as high as $12,300 on Ticketmaster. It might be that fans are initially pricing these tickets very high just to see if there are any takers, but the starting price is still shocking. Right now there are about 1,000 tickets in the marketplace, which is also lower than usual, but there are still 4 months before the game is played. Still, the prices are likely a sign of what's to come this season, reigniting fears that the new stadium will price out some fans, at least at the outset. High ticket prices seem to be a recurring theme, but the Bills' home opener is on another level, said Nick Giamuso, founder and CEO of Buffalo ticket reseller VIP Tix, which has the least expensive ticket for an upper level seat, priced closer to $650. I didn't think they'd be this high, he said. People want to get into the new stadium to check it out. Besides, the Bills are still being a Super Bowl contender and having Josh Allen. All that drives up ticket prices, but the new stadium just makes it even crazier market. Fans are expressing their disbelief about the secondary market ticket prices on social media. It's official, they have just priced the blue-collar fan out of the stadium with his family, one fan wrote on the Bills Mafia Facebook page. There's no way I will spend $2,000 to go to a Buffalo Bills game that I can watch on TV and I have a better view just to take me and my son. The first regular season game in the new stadium will likely be the most expensive one, as Bills fans without a ticket try any way they can to get in, and season ticket holders already with seats attempt to cash in. The new stadium will be filled with season ticket holders, most of whom paid for a seat license. They may be apt to sell a few games to help make back some of the money they spent on the PSL and ticket prices that for some went up 50 to 100%. The Bills made an effort to minimize ticket resellers buying up many of the seats around the stadium by limiting account holders to no more than 8 tickets. At the former Highmark Stadium, some season ticket holders had more than 100 tickets on their account, most of which they used to resell. But season ticket holders had another bite at the apple to buy more seats at the new stadium before they went on sale to fans on the wait list, so many may have scooped up extra tickets to sell. Jim Musso is not sure prices will be coming down that much for the home opener and said they may continue to be high throughout the Bills' first season with the new stadium. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Continuing with football, following Dad's path. Bruno Fina, son of longtime lineman John Fina, looks to buck the odds. Bruno Fina never got a chance to see his father play for the Buffalo Bills in person. He heard all the stories from John Fina, though, so the opportunity to walk in his dad's footsteps is extra special for Bruno Fina, who signed last week with the Bills as a rookie undrafted free agent from Duke University. John Fina was a first-round draft choice of the Bills in 1992 out of the University of Arizona, joining the team halfway through its run of 4 straight Super Bowl appearances. John Fina was the number 27 overall pick that year by general manager Bill Polian and would go on to have a very successful career in Buffalo, starting 131 of 140 games in regular season over 10 years with the Bills from 1992 to 2001. He also played in 8 of the 12 playoff games over that time, starting in Super Bowl 28 against the Dallas Cowboys. Bruno Fina was born in 2002, the same year John Fina ended his NFL career by appearing in 7 games for the Arizona Cardinals. Bruno Fina doesn't have any memories of seeing his dad play live, but he's watched highlights preserved on a flash drive of his time in Buffalo. Speaks for itself, Bruno Fina said. Yeah, he did all right. Bruno Fina agreed to sign with the Bills after going undrafted last month. Although he played his position in tackle in college for the Blue Devils, he's listed as a guard on the Bills roster and said after Friday's rookie minicamp that the position he expects to see the most work as he fights to overcome the long odds and earn a spot on the team's 53-man roster. I mean, it was long odds to get here, so just to do the same thing I've been doing, one step at a time, Bruno Fina said. I know it sounds generic, but that's all it is. Do every little thing you can do right, and if you don't make it, you can look back and say, I did everything I could. Bruno Fina compared getting the call from the Bills after the draft with an offer to sign with them to the first scholarship offer he received in high school. The moment became real, however, when he walked into the locker room ahead of rookie minicamp and saw the Fina nameplate above a locker. Here I am, holding the helmet with the blue and red stripe on it, he said. It's special, and I feel very, very lucky to be here. Bruno Fina earned his spot through his play in college. After spending 4 years at UCLA and graduating with a degree in business economics, he transferred to Duke for the final 2 seasons of college eligibility. Bruno Fina wanted to continue to play tackle at the college level, but UCLA wanted to shift him inside to guard. My last year at UCLA was the first year that I started, and I feel like I really could have had a much better year, he said. They wanted me to move to guard because they had some guys coming in. I felt like I was still had more meat on the bone to play tackle. Transferring to Duke allowed him to do that. It gave him an opportunity to play with his little brother, Roman, who was a member of the team in 2025. Bruno Fina earned a master's degree in management studies while at Duke and was the Blue Devils' offensive recipient of the Cutcliffe Family Awards, which are presented annually to the most improved players in the program. He started all 14 games at left tackle and helped Duke to its first outright Atlantic Coast Conference championship since 1992. As the Blue Devils set school records for touchdowns, 63, and points scored, 484, Bruno Fina played 44 games in his total college career with 38 starts. Despite that team success, Bruno did not receive an invite to the NFL Scouting Combine. The 6'5" to 306 pounder instead had to rely on his game and performances at Duke Pro Day. Those left enough of an impression to earn a chance with the Bills. John Fina's advice was to make the most of his time in a place he came to enjoy playing. He said he loved the city. He always loved the city, Bruno said. He talked about Buffalo all the time. Loved the time that he lived here. Loved the friends that he made here and his family he's got close by. It's a great city to be a young person in, so just soak it up. Work hard, but enjoy the city a little bit too.
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 10:31. On to Asking Eric, young podcaster ghosted by professional contacts. Dear Eric, I am a 16-year-old junior in high school who has an ambition to be a sports broadcaster. I have started my own sports podcast. From the very start of my podcasting, I've tried to reach out to important sports people in the business. I've reached out to MLB radio people, sports talk hosts, NFL pregame hosts, and other podcasters. Each one of those people has gotten back to me in a relatively quick amount of time, 15 minutes for the MLB broadcaster, and 1 day or so for the others. I get back to them within a day, and then I wait weeks. They have never replied. I reach out to some through Instagram, and I see that they are reading my message and seeing that I did respond to them. One actually said, I'll reach out tonight. It's been 4 weeks since that message was sent. Are people ghosting me because I'm young? What message can I send them saying, just tell me whether you want to help or not? Either option is fine, but I was really hoping that you would come on my podcast and have delayed putting out an episode because you said you would come on tonight. From Am I Too Young? Dear Young, I admire your ambition and the expansive way that you're thinking. I'm sorry you're experiencing these roadblocks. It's possible that these folks have automatic reply bots or to manage their communication, or they could simply be flaky. Either way, I'd suggest letting no response be a response and pivoting to a slightly different model. Though big names will help raise the profile of a podcast, sometimes the real value of your podcast is you and your perspective. So you might switch to sending finished episodes to people mentioned or people whose opinion you admire. Ask them to share or give you feedback. Many of these professionals may be working with booking agents, so social media won't be the most expedient way to get to them. If there's someone who you feel will add something of substance to your podcast, try planning further out so that you have time to track down their representatives and establish contact that way. Lastly, behind the booth connections matter just as much, if not more, than on-mic talent. So look into the National Sports Media Association, .org, or your local Broadcasters Association. They may have mentorship opportunities that will pay dividends throughout your career. Dear Eric, do you ever advise someone to tell the other person, I've had enough of this, just shut up? I'm thinking of my sister. She's intelligent and knowledgeable, but opinionated as hell. When she has an opinion about something, she's always right. Attempts to discuss it with her in a rational manner are futile. The only way I've found to get her to shut up on a matter is the above or some variation of it. Our relationship has survived in spite of this. You might have to know more than is conveyed in a letter or email, but I wonder if you ever had one where that seemed like the best or only solution from heard enough. Dear heard enough. Well, I haven't had the opportunity to advise those words specifically, and I probably wouldn't, but I've certainly come up with a creative way of saying the same thing. Anytime I offer a script, I would hope that the letter writer or anyone else who adopts it puts it into words that feel most comfortable for them. Often that script needs to be responsive to the two people communicating. So in your case, shut up is effective because it's understood to mean something like, hey, remember the boundary I have? Well, we've reached it. While in other contexts this would come across as rude or be counterproductive to a communicative relationship, I'm glad you found something that works for the two of you. And dear Eric, I have a different slant on a twin brother who wants to propose at his twin's destination wedding, already saved the date article. I'm sure twins have to share a lot, but why not share the fun? It sounds like there's no objection to the intended new fiancé. Believe me, in 25 or 50 years, it will be a great memory. Maybe many family friends and family members, and even those from the other family, may delight in another reason to celebrate. Life is short. Enjoy the moments you can. I would be delighted to have a double family joyful weekend, as it is hard to get all our loved ones together in one place. From Party Nana. Dear Nana, a few letters came in that shared a similar sentiment. A fair perspective. What's important is that the siblings communicate clearly so there's no hard feelings and the happy moments can be happy for everyone. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Following is analysis. China sees a familiar flaw in U.S. strategy on Iran. Beijing. The Trump administration has repeatedly framed the war in Iran as a quick, winnable fight, vowing to defeat the Islamic Republic totally and decisively, incomparable to the dumb wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. But from China's perspective, the parallels are clear. You can blow everything up, destroy it all, one Chinese official told the Los Angeles Times describing the Americans, but you don't have a strategy. President Trump is scheduled to arrive in Beijing today for talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Trade is expected to be a major focus, as well as the ongoing conflict with Iran, artificial intelligence, and Taiwan. Trump is scheduled to depart Beijing on Friday. China is confident as ever in its ascendance on the world stage, taking stock of its leverage, and it's still baffled that the U.S. administration chose to engage in yet another costly war in the Middle East. China has watched as the United States, over 2 months of fighting an outmatched enemy, has depleted nearly half of its stock of high-end munitions, including its THAAD and Patriot batteries, and fired its Army Chief of Staff, among other Pentagon leaders who had warned of critical shortages. Marco Rubio, Trump's national security advisor and Secretary of State, has said the military operation that started the war, known as Operation Epic Fury, is over. But the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most vital commercial waterways, remains effectively shuttered. Iranian attacks in the region continue, and talks between Washington and Tehran have failed to reach a diplomatic agreement to bring a definitive end to the conflict. The Chinese have high regard for the operational proficiency of U.S. forces, but they recognize that, thus far at least, the Trump administration has not achieved its core objectives in going to war with Iran, said David Ochmanek, a former Deputy Assistant and Secretary of Defense, now with the RAND Corp. The war has given Beijing an opportunity, Omenchek said, to double down on the claim they have made for the past year and a half that the People's Republic of China, not the U.S., is a force for global stability. The war has allowed China to demonstrate some diplomatic prowess. An initial ceasefire reached between the United States and Iran last month was only clinched after Beijing pressured Tehran to agree. And China's advocacy for an open strait, rejecting Iranian attempts to impose a toll system while opposing the U.S. war itself, has allowed Beijing to maintain leverage with both sides. It also has inflicted costs. Allies of Beijing noticed when the government did not leap to the defense of Tehran at the start of the war. And China has its own vested interest in a free and open waterway, with nearly 50% of the country's crude oil imports passed through each day. Building up to the start of the war and throughout its initial weeks, Washington diverted significant military assets from Asia, where Trump's own national security strategy says they are needed most, to the Middle East. The USS Abraham Lincoln was redirected from the South China Sea along with scores of advanced missile interceptors from South Korea and Japan, and nearly the entire U.S. inventory of long-range air-to-surface missiles in the Pacific. Policy experts at the Pentagon brought in to discuss a potential invasion of Karg Island, the jewel of Iran's oil industry, to draw lessons from planning a defense of Taiwan, according to a defense official who was granted anonymity to speak candidly. A Marine Expeditionary Unit was sent from Okinawa to the region for the potential operation. Chinese officials and analysts have been candid in their assessments of U.S. hard power, impressed by a military they acknowledge remains the best in the world. But Beijing sees a persistent flaw in U.S. strategy: the belief that military strength alone can reshape political realities, a view further weakened by the pressures on democratic government whose public grows impatient with wars that drag on beyond days or weeks. China's autocracy is free from accountability to the public, and anyway has the confidence that Chinese public opinion would be on its side if it were to launch a major military operation against its main target, Taiwan. But there are lessons of caution to be learned from the Americans as well. Over the last year, the Taiwanese Navy has been practicing the rapid deployment of cheap and domestically produced smart mines for the sea, a potential bulwark against enemy blockades of ports and hostile invasion forces. If it is the type of asymmetric warfare that has so far frustrated the U.S. military in the Strait of Hormuz, protracting a war that Trump vowed would last a month or less, Taiwan, too, would confront Beijing with political realities that military force cannot erase. Nearly 90% of the Taiwanese people oppose a Chinese takeover, and about 60% say they would resist it at all costs. Chinese analysts see two things at once, said Craig Singleton, Senior Director of the China Program at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. They are impressed by U.S. military reach, precision, and operational capability, but they also see a familiar pattern of American power struggling to translate battlefield success into a durable political outcome. That matters for Taiwan, Singleton said, because China's own military modernization has borrowed heavily from the American model, relying heavily on joint operations, high-tech precision strikes, decapitation concepts, and information dominance. If the world's most experienced military can still struggle to convert military pressure into political success, he added, Beijing has to ask whether the People's Liberation Army could do better in a far more complex Taiwan scenario. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. Makeshift materials. Carpenters recycling wood amid shortages. Israeli aid restrictions. As Israeli restrictions continue to curb the entry of goods into Gaza, carpenters turn to scrap wood and shipping pallets to make much-needed basic beds and tables in a territory battered by 2 years of war between Hamas militants and Israel. In a workshop in southern Gaza, carpenters dismantled used pallets to make beds, cupboards, and shelves for families displaced by fighting after regular construction materials became scarce or prohibitively expensive. Mohammed Wafi, 34, a carpenter in Kana Yunus, said pallets became one of the few available sources of wood when limited aid trucks began to enter Gaza. Demand for his handiwork grew as people living in tents seek basic furniture to get by, he said. Even recycled furniture became more costly as prices for basic components soar. Today people say, I just need something to get by, something to get my clothes off the floor, especially those living in tents, he said, who has worked in carpentry for 16 years. Due to the rats and cockroaches, he said they needed a tent or a bed to be lifted off the ground. Rats and parasites are spreading through Gaza's tent camps, biting people as they sleep, gnawing through possessions and spreading disease. COGAT, C-O-G-A-T, the Israeli military agency that coordinates the movement of aid into Gaza, didn't respond to a request for comment. Wood is a construction material that Israel bans from entry to Gaza because it is considered a dual-use item. Items for civilian use but also potential military use. We used to get a kilo of nails for 5 shekels, $1.70. Today, a kilo of nails costs around 100 or 130 shekels, Wafi said. Hinges and other fittings are also multiplied in price. Still, furniture made from pallets remains far cheaper than conventional bedroom sets consisting of a bed, closet, and dresser, he said. A pallet set sells for 4,000 to 5,000 shekels compared to 18,000 for a traditional set. Shortages of electricity and wood slowed production, he added, leaving carpenters unable to guarantee delivery times. The ceasefire in Gaza has been repeatedly violated. Israelis killed more than 830 Palestinians, while militants killed 4 Israeli soldiers since the truce began in October, according to Palestinian and Israeli tallies. Israel cites security concerns for curbs on Gaza. COGAT previously said it invests considerable efforts to ensure aid reaches Gaza and denied restricting supplies. In tent encampments near Khan Yunis, Mohammed Telsi, who has lived in a tent for 2 years, said he slept on the ground until recently. The ground is sandy and dirty, and as you can see, you find the clothes full of sand, he said. There are rats and mice. One's back hurts and is stiff from sleeping on the floor. Now we have a bed, he said. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Following is an election 2026. The price of disloyalty. Trump backs primary challengers against his perceived foes in GOP. President Donald Trump knocked off at least 5 Republican state senators in Indiana he considered disloyal. Now, the question is whether he will command much outsized influence in GOP primaries for Congress and governor. Representative Thomas Massie in Kentucky, Senator Bill Cassidy in Louisiana, and Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger earned Trump's ire in different ways. Now Trump wants to replace them with Republicans he considers more reliable. John Pitney Jr., a professor of politics at Claremont McKenna College in California, said the Indiana results confirmed Trump's grip on his party. Sometimes Republican politicians can cross him and survive, but usually they don't, Pitney said. If you're a Republican with doubts about Trump, you have a strong incentive to keep those doubts in a lockbox. Karen Holt, a political science professor at Virginia Tech, said to the extent the races are viewed as one-shot retribution or payback races in safe Republican districts, the campaigns likely conveyed little about the cost of gas, food, and health care. Certainly in the short run, President Trump and his Republican supporters are and will continue highlighting the victories and the depth of their support among Republican voters, while underscoring the risk to those who oppose or can be cast as blocking presidential leadership, he said. Dissenters targeted. Trump endorsed 7 GOP challengers campaigning to defeat Indiana state senators who opposed his attempt to redraw congressional districts to give the GOP a greater advantage. Trump called each incumbent a loser, in caps, and a Republican in name only. 5 of the incumbents were defeated. 1 survived, and another race remained too close to call. The results illustrated the polarizing effect Trump has. The Trump's disapproval rating hit an all-time high of 62% in Washington Post, ABC News, Ipsos poll taken April 24th to 28. But the same poll of 2,560 adults found 85% of Republican voters approved of the job he's doing. Trump is perhaps not as popular in my district as he once was, but he is still overwhelmingly popular. State Senator Spencer Deary, whose race was too close to call, told CNN. Larry Sabuto, director of the University of Virginia's Center for Politics, said he knew Republicans were edging closer to selective criticism of Trump on the war, inflation, and so on. But the Indiana defeats are intimidating. It's the survival instinct of politicians who were on the ballot in November, Sabato said. I guarantee you they've stepped back after Indiana. Thomas Massie. Massie voted against the president's tax cuts package last year. He led the legislative battle to force the Justice Department to release documents about the investigation of the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. He also voted to halt the war on Iran. Trump blasted Massie in social media posts and visited his Kentucky district in March to campaign for his primary opponent. He's the worst person, Trump said of Macy at a March rally where he endorsed Ed Galbraith of Hebron, Kentucky. Macy is a complete and total disaster as a congressman and, frankly, as a human being. Macy leads Galbraith in polling for the May 19th primary. Bill Cassidy was among the 7 Republican senators who voted to convict Trump in a second Senate impeachment trial on charges that he incited the Capitol riot on January 6, 2021. Trump was acquitted due to lack of a two-thirds majority in the 57-43 vote. More recently, Cassidy, a doctor, forced the withdrawal of Trump's candidate for Surgeon General, Casey Means, after grilling her over lack of support for vaccines. Trump called Cassidy a very disloyal person in an April 30th social media post. Trump endorsed Cassidy's primary opponent, Representative Julie Letlow, as a total winner to support energy development and lower taxes and regulations. Brad Raffensperger. Raffensperger is running for governor after he refused Trump's reading these things online is a joke, folks. Okay. Here we are. Raffensperger is running for governor after he refused Trump's request to find enough votes to win the 2010 state election, when Trump lost to Democratic President Joe Biden. In January 2021, Trump accused Raffensperger of not doing his job and allegedly withheld evidence that thousands of fraudulent votes were cast. Trump endorsed Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones in the Georgia primary May 19th as a warrior to grow the economy, cut taxes, and secure the border. Sabuto said it would take extraordinary luck for Massey, Cassidy, and Raffensperger to win their primaries. There are always surprises and an occasional exception to the rule, but these 3 will be the equivalent of multi-state lottery winners if they survive Trump's wrath, he said.
Thank you, Larry. Inflation leaps to 3.8%, eroding paychecks. For the first time in 3 years, Americans' wages are no longer outpacing inflation. Prices rose 0.6% on a monthly basis, driving the annual rate to 3.8%, the highest since May 2023, according to the latest Consumer Price Index data released Tuesday by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Economists had expected prices to rise 0.6% from March and for the annual rate to climb to 3.7%. Prior to late February U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran, inflation had eased to 2.4%. It leaped higher in March, and now the energy price shock from the Iran war is further compounding long-standing affordability concerns for Americans weighed down by years of fast rising prices. For consumers, that means the cost of living remains uncomfortable. Economist Sung Von Sohn, a finance and economics professor at Loyola Marymount University, wrote in a note Tuesday. For the Federal Reserve, it means rate cuts are likely to be pushed in the future. The post-pandemic inflation burst when the annual pace of price hikes hit a 4-decade high of 9.1% in the summer of 2022, drastically lifted all manner of prices. However, in recent years, as inflation slowed, at least some Americans were able to get a leg up as their pay went faster than inflation. That changed last month. Annual inflation-adjusted average hourly wage growth went negative for the first time since April 2023. Paychecks grew 3.6% from April of last year on average. Prices rose 3.8%. Consumers were already under pressure. We've seen a softening in the labor market, said Augustine Faucher, Senior Vice President and Chief Economist of PNC Financial Services Group. This unwelcome milestone arrives as Americans are contending with an energy price shock that's rippling through the economy, making commonly purchased items even more expensive. Plus, it's not just oil. A choked-off Strait of Hormuz has interrupted a flow of other critical materials, including fertilizers, aluminum, and helium. As it stands now, the higher prices are hitting consumers in some of the most visible of places: the gas station, the grocery store, and their electric bills. Gas prices didn't rise as fast as they did in March, when they shot up a record 21.2%. However, the 5.6% increase in April was the second fastest seen since the latter part of 2023. Electricity prices pushed higher last year because of factors such as demand for data centers, weather, and infrastructure costs now face additional pressures from the global oil and gas shock. In April, prices for electricity rose 2.1%, the fastest monthly increase in more than 4 years. And overall food prices rose 0.5%. Grocery items were up 0.7% last month and are up a respective 3.2% and 3.6% from the year before. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, May 13th, 2026. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Linda Ranella.
and Larry Bean. Thank you for listening, and please continue to stay safe.
Welcome summer with your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We're planning a summer bash bigger and better than ever before. It's Friday, June 26th at Creekside Banquet Facility in Grove, located at the corner of Union Road and William Street in Cheektowaga. You're invited to enjoy a buffet chicken and pasta dinner, your first drink on us, a basket raffle, and Buffalo Music Hall of Fame party band The Boys of Summer from 6 to 9 p.m. Tickets are $50 and support the 160 volunteers who read all the programming offered by Radio Reading. That's Friday, June 26th from 6 to 9 p.m. at Creekside Banquet Facility in Grove in Cheektowaga. Get your tickets now by calling 716-821-5555 extension 3 or online at nfradioreading.org. Thank you to New Era Cap Foundation, Tyverin Law, and Perry's Ice Cream for sponsoring this largest event of the year.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service are the New York Times Style section. Following that at noon is the USA Today. Stay with us for this reading and more. program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability